Good morning.
Morning.
I'm gonna try that again. Good morning.
Morning.
I know you're awake. We've been here since 7 o'clock rolling this morning, so some of you had time already to go back and take a nap. So as we get ready to start this morning, I'm gonna ask Representative Carl Gilliard, if he will, to do an invocation for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We thank you on today, Lord, as we are here at this defining moment in this Ecclesiastes 3:3 season. We know that we are in seasons on today. In this season of stewardship and leadership and guidance, we ask, as we are in the middle of completing the 2022 Georgia General Assembly, that you give us the tenacity to lead and to make sure that we make viable decisions for your people. Lord, as we are stewards over your budget, we thank you for the opportunity to serve your people. We give you praises and honor and glory on today for what you are continually doing for your people. And we thank you on today. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. We have before us two compensation resolutions that we will take up before we take up the budget. As has been our practice over the last several years, we assign the compensation resolutions to a special subcommittee, ad hoc subcommittee, to review these applications to bring forward. One of those has been withdrawn. House Resolution 665 has been withdrawn for some technical issues. But we do have before us this morning, and you should have in front of you, if you don't raise your hand, the committee subs to H.R. 593 and H.R. 626. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Chairman Perkle for a few comments. He was the chair of the special subcommittee, and then we'll have the two authors present the resolutions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did chair the ad hoc committee to make the recommendation on these two resolutions. I want to make sure we're operating off the right one. So for H.R. 593, LC 345828S is a substitute that we did pass out of the ad hoc committee, and for H.R. 626 from Representative Holcomb, LC 345829S was also passed out of the ad hoc committee as presented here on your table.
Thank you, sir. And I'm going to ask Chairman Hogan if he will come forward and present H.R. 593 briefly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. H.R. 593 is compensation for Mr. Dennis Arnold Perry. Whereas on the evening of March the 11th, 1985, a man shot and killed Thelma and Harold Swain in the Rising Daughter Baptist Church in Waverly, Georgia. And whereas the course of the original investigation of murders, the investigating officer of Camden County Sheriff's Office and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, hundreds of leads and individuals, including Dennis Perry, whom they cleared as a suspect because he was working in Atlanta at the time the murders were committed. And Mr. Perry's attorney is here to answer any questions and make a presentation, if that's okay. So, Mr. Phil Holliday, very short.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. As Don said, I'm Phil Holliday, and along with some lawyers from King & Spalding and the Georgia Innocence Project, I've had the privilege of representing Dennis Arnold Perry since 2018, and I really appreciate the opportunity to speak briefly today about his case and to answer any questions you may have about his case. As I think most of you know from having reviewed the materials, Mr. Perry was convicted and spent more than 20 years in prison for the murders of Harold and Thelma Swain. These are crimes that he has always maintained he did not commit, crimes that the original investigating officers who spent years working on the case concluded and have always believed Dennis did not commit because he had an airtight alibi that they reviewed, thoroughly investigated, and as Don just said, they cleared him of these murders. These are crimes that the DNA evidence conclusively shows he did not commit. And these are crimes that the current Brunswick DA and the GBI believes Dennis Perry did not commit. So you got to be asking yourself right now, if all that's true, and it is, there's no dispute about it, why in the world are we here? We're here, unfortunately, because officials empowered and charged by the state of Georgia to uphold and enforce the law abandon the pursuit of justice in favor of a do-whatever approach to wrongfully prosecute and convict an innocent man. The lead prosecutor in the case violated multiple court orders and his obligations under the law and failed to produce critical evidence to Mr. Perry's defense team. He failed to disclose that the only witness implicating Mr. Perry, their star witness, had been seeking a reward since the day Mr. Perry was arrested and was later paid a substantial reward for her testimony. He failed to turn over a report showing that another man had confessed to law enforcement that he was involved in the murders. And perhaps most critically, he failed to turn over an investigative file relating to another suspect who had bragged to his ex-wife family that he had committed the murders. She had actually been shown the key piece of evidence found at the scene, a pair of unique eyeglasses that had 3 hairs caught in the hinges. And she said, those are the glasses my ex-husband used to have, and he lost them. And finally, that omission was so damaging because in 2020, mitochondrial DNA testing proved that that man, a man named Eric Sparr's DNA matches the DNA that was on those hairs found at the scene. But the DA wasn't the only one who engaged in misconduct. The lead investigating officer responsible for charging and arresting Mr. Perry, he was hired 13 years after the murders were committed. Within days, even though there were files on hundreds of suspects, he decided he was going to build a case against Dennis Perry and nothing was going to get in his way. When another deputy working with him on the reopened investigation said, but Mr. Perry has a documented alibi in the file, it's right here, he was immediately removed from the investigation. And more troubling, when the new investigator took over, evidence started disappearing. That documented alibi of Mr. Perry, gone, not available at trial. Those unique glasses that had been linked to Mr. Sparr, but not Mr. Perry, gone. The result of all this misconduct, unfortunately, was all too predictable, because that's not the way Georgia's criminal justice system is supposed to work. Instead, we ended up with a devastating miscarriage of justice that wrecked a man's life. Mr. Perry, who prior to his arrest was a hard-working construction foreman who had never been charged or associated in any way with a violent crime, lost everything: his house, his savings, all of his possessions, and even his marriage. For most people, that would have been the end of the story. But Dennis Perry is not most people. Even as his losses continued to mount while in jail, bolstered by his faith and his wife, now wife Brenda, he never lost faith. And fortunately, in 2020, after being presented with the new DNA evidence, Judge Scarlett down in the Brunswick Circuit released Dennis from jail, overturned his conviction, released him from jail, and at the DA's request, later dismissed all charges. Now, Dennis's nightmare is over in terms of his time in prison. But what has never been addressed is the losses he incurred. And I don't even know how you start to quantify those losses. And so instead of telling you in my words what he lost, I'm going to read to you in closing Dennis's words about what he lost. My freedom, my family, my health, and the business I was building based on honesty and integrity. It was all taken from me. The opportunity to have my own children and watch them grow, and my trust in the justice system and law enforcement. I lost my grandmother, my best friend in 2014, lost my mother in 2017, my father in 2020. I was never able to say goodbye or properly grieve them. These are all things the state took from me when they convicted me of a crime I did not commit and locked me behind bars for more than 20 years. I am so grateful for my wife, Brenda, who stood beside me then and still does now, for her endless love and hard work to support us. At this point in my life, I should be able to have my finances in order so that my wife and I can think about retirement. But instead, I have no income, my health is not good, and I must start all over again. I'm so relieved that the nightmare of wrongful imprisonment is behind me, but I will live with what happened to me every day of my life. We knew when we know this process isn't designed and cannot possibly reimburse or compensate Dennis for all he has been through and lost. I know there's no amount of money that anybody in this room would take to have happen to them what happened to Dennis. When we asked for $1,435,000, we did so because we thought that was reasonable, looking at compensation statutes in other states and the federal government statute. We're aware that the subcommittee reduced that amount by changing from, we had requested $70,000 a year, and they reduced it to $60,000, and we understand that. And we also learned yesterday that the proposal is to pay it out 1/4 in a lump sum, a little over $300,000, and the remainder in an annuity to be paid out over 20 years. And if I could just briefly, Mr. Chairman, address the 20-year payout. Dennis and his wife are 60 and 64 years old, respectively. Paying it out over 20 years creates an undue hardship for them, and that it's likely one or both won't be alive to get those full benefits. And so we would respectfully ask if the committee could see its way to reconsider and pay Mr. Perry's annuity payout over 10 years rather than 20. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to address any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Tarvin, you got a question?
Just very quickly, the DA withheld evidence.
Yes, sir.
What happened to him? Where is he or she?
He's no longer, there's a new DA who was elected in Brunswick, and that former assistant DA who did all that is no longer with the DA's
But you said
office.
he was elected by the people of that district?
He was not. He was the assistant DA, the lead assistant DA in the office at the time the cases were tried.
So he's an employee of that.
He was employed by the DA, and I'm told tried every serious murder case in the district for over 25 years.
Chairman Knight?
Thank you. And probably a follow-up to the previous question, in regards to some of these issues that it was found, evidence withheld or stolen, does that person still have a license to practice law? Were there investigations into that? Because it does no good to, let that person go out and practice again if that's the ethics of that attorney.
It's my understanding that that assistant DA, as I said, is no longer in the DA's office. He may be trying misdemeanor cases, I'm told, but I'm not aware of any disciplinary action that has been taken against him at this time.
Is there an investigation by the bar into that?
Not that I'm aware of. We, of course, made all that information aware, Judge Scarlett aware of that information, and there were a series of newspaper articles because this was a highly publicized case. It was part of a national podcast. So that conduct is out there. It's been known for some time, but I'm not aware of any disciplinary proceedings.
Chairman Fleming?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Counselor, thank you for being here today. Isn't it true that anyone, not an attorney, but anyone sitting in this room, if they wanted to bring a bar complaint against that attorney, they could do that? Is that not correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Chairman Purple.
I think, Mr. Chairman, at the appropriate time, I'd like to make a motion to pass.
Okay, we have a motion on due pass to have a second, and on the request on the annuity piece, we have to use need to use a standardized process, and that's what the 20-year payout is doing. Now, we are changing a little bit and doing the 25% of the payout on the front end. We've never done that before, but I understand that in the annuity, it will be a 20-year annuity, and it will roll to the heirs. So,
If there's no way that it can change, we understand, but it is a particular hardship, and I wanted to make sure.
all right, we have a motion due pass and a second. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Aye. Motion carries. Next up will be the committee sub to H.R. 626. Representative Holcomb will present that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm here this morning to advocate on behalf of Kerry Robinson. Kerry Robinson was convicted of a crime that he did not commit. He was convicted of a brutal sexual assault, and then he spent 18 years in prison. As you all know, this General Assembly, and particularly the House, has worked very hard over the last several years to address the issues of sexual assault kit testing, preservation of evidence, and one of the things that's been said in those discussions is that by doing this, we can both better identify individuals that commit these crimes and also exonerate those that did not. Kerry Robinson was exonerated because of DNA. To make it very simple for you, during the testimony in his case, the GBI witness, and I have tremendous respect for GBI, but in this instance, they got it wrong. He testified that while he could not do the math, it was a very, very low probability that it was anybody other than Mr. Robinson who committed the crime. When the analysis was done correctly, it found that it was 1,800 times more likely that a random African American walking on the street committed the crime than Kerry Robinson. It is completely conclusive that he did not commit the crime, and because of that, we are seeking compensation for him. I will close by saying I'm happy to answer any questions and to go into any detail that y'all might like. I'm a former prosecutor, and when this was brought to me, I didn't immediately say yes. I had to do my homework. I called the prosecutor. I called the defense lawyer. I read through everything. I said this in the subcommittee, and I'll say it again, and I may say it on the floor. I'm a little bit embarrassed that I had that reaction because he was innocent. And yet my own biases, I didn't immediately get to a place of yes to help him. He lost 18 years of his life. And so this, while it does not compensate him, it will make a big difference. So I encourage you to vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Don't appear to have any questions. Chairman Purple,
At the appropriate time, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to pass.
you're recognized for that. Do we have a second? Second. Numerous seconds. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Aye. Motion carries. Committee sub to H.R. 626 is passed. I will now hand over the chairmanship of the meeting to our committee secretary, Mr. Dubnik. Chairman Dubnik, Representative Dubnik, otherwise known as Matt.
Thank you, Mr. So it's only one bottle today?
We'll see.
Has that bottle been opened yet?
Just barely. I broke the seal on it.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm glad to have before me and members of the committee the one-page summary of your notes today, so we appreciate the cliff notes as always. The microphone is hot, the podium is yours.
Well, we could just start out with what the legendary Representative Judy Pogue once said. Anybody going to vote against it? Hearing none, I'm done. Y'all vote. In all seriousness, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee. Thank you to our subcommittee chairs and all of you as members, because each of you serve on a subcommittee, for the incredible work that you've put into this document. This is an incredible budget this year from what we've been able to do for the least of these among us. I do want to say a special thank you as well to Martha and Christine and the entire House Budget and Research Office. Y'all, you have no idea the number of hours that they put in. I know I say it constantly. I know I say that every time I get up. I said it yesterday, saying it today, I'll say it again tomorrow. But you truly have no idea the number of hours and how late they stay here many, many days after we've all gone home to eat a bowl of soup or to a restaurant to eat our dinner. They're still here and they're still working and they're asking questions and they're double checking and triple checking and quadruple checking. Santa Claus doesn't have anything on them. They make a list and check it 4 times, if not 5. So thank you to each one of our staff, and again, thank you to each of you for the hard work that's gone into this budget. We'll try to run through it very quickly. Most of you have been in and out of the subcommittee meetings today, so I may not hit as deep a detail as the subcommittees did this morning, just in the interest of time. I know a lot of other committees are meeting, and some of you need to move on to other things. We have rules in here shortly after we finish. So Section 1, no changes. Section 2, House of Representatives, you'll see the statewide spreads there that are added. Those deal with the cost of living increase, the pay out for accrued leave, and then an ERS adjustment as well. Joint offices of the General Assembly, again, the same things there on the common spreads. And then you'll see an increase in funds for legislative operations dealing with LexisNexis contract and several other bits and pieces, as well as the NCSL staff hub that will be coming to Atlanta later this year. First time we've hosted that I'm aware of. Moving on to audits and accounts. And again, in audits and accounts, remember that is a kind of a branch of the General Assembly, of the legislative branch. So we have to make the changes there. You'll see those changes, the statewide spreads at the top there in the first section. But moving on down to 4.1.8, you'll see that $2 million there is moved over to 4.3.1, just as the adjustment to put it in the right program. And then a reduction there at 4.1.9 in some one-time funds, and then also use some existing language to use existing funds at 4.1.10. Court of Appeals, again, they submit their budget to the governor. The governor and OPB cannot make any changes. We're the only ones that can make changes in their budget. So you'll see the statewide spreads of the $5,000 COLA throughout that document. Then you'll see at 5.1.14 an increase in per diems. So their per diems are tied to our per diems for the General Assembly. So we had to match what those were. Moving on over at 5.2.6 under the statewide business court, you'll see an adjustment at 5.2.6 for the 5,000 COLA there. And then at 5.2.7 an add that they had that is not necessary now because of the COLA. Moving on to Section 6, Judicial Council, you'll see a restoration of operating funds at 6.1.4, the statewide spreads, and then you'll get down to 6.4.7, 8, and 9, updating to reflect the $5,000 COLA there, and also at 10. Then at 6.4.16, you'll see the reduction in funds for one-time funds that were put in last year, and the remainder there are the statewide spreads. Section 7, dealing with juvenile courts, the statewide spreads. Then a notation at 7.2.1, that we will do that should that bill seek final passage. Prosecuting Attorney, Section 8, 8.1.1, and that is a restoration of the cut we had to take in 2020, there for that $20,000. At 8.2.8, that was no longer necessary there because of the statewide $5,000 COLA. 8.2.10, you'll see 4 additional assistant district attorneys. That is part of the House law enforcement package. 8.2.12, 13, and 14 are just adding the 3 new additional assistant district attorneys with the creation of the 2 new judgeships, with the judgeships in each of those districts. Moving on down to 8.3.10, increased funds for 1 payroll specialist there. And then at 8.3.11, we did not agree for that prosecutor position to be added. Moving on to Superior Courts, 9.1.4 is something other than the statewide changes that I've already mentioned. And these will allow for some targeted salary increases, but those are covered in the 5,000 COLA. And you'll see that at 9.2.5 as well as 9.3.14. You'll see some additions at 9, 3, 10, 11, and 12, again related to the 3 new judgeships. This will effectively put them starting to operate on January 1st of 2023, just like we do typically with those new judgeships. And then at 9.3.16, again, retention and turnover issues. With the $5,000 COLA, this takes the law clerks to a total of $50,000 per year for those individuals. Supreme Courts, 10.1.9, you'll see the adjustment for the trooper that's assigned to the Supreme Court there for the COLA. 10.1.12, the subcommittee recommended not to do that position. At 10.1.13, instead of 2, just doing 1. And then at 10.1.14, the $5,000 COLA covers that. Section 11, State Accounting Office, you'll see some adjustments there for the COLA. There's 2 ways to do these. It's either put it in here or do a statewide spread within every agency. For the time being, we're saying let's just add those here at the State Accounting Office to take care of those individuals. And then at 11.6.4, you'll see where we had to eliminate funds for an auditor position in 21. We're adding that back at $115,000. DOAS, Section 12, there are statewide changes throughout there too because they're funded with state other funds. So we're paying one way or the other, and so we're doing it here. We may go back in the amended and do the spread throughout the state agencies to normalize that. 12.2.2, you'll see the hat tip to those 2 compensation resolutions. Those will be funded should they get final passage in both bodies as well. Department of Ag, 13.1.3, you'll see an add to replace the austerity reduction for the Athens-Tifton Vet Labs. It's a contract that goes through the Department of Ag. And then at 13.2.1, you'll see several times throughout Department of Ag some additions that are true-ups on the $5,000 increase as well throughout that agency. Moving on down to Soil and Water Conservation Commission at 13.7.6 and at 7.7. These conservation districts do an incredible job across this state. So any development that is done, if you're disturbing over 1 acre of land, you have to have an erosion and sediment control plan, and that has to be approved. And it goes through the Soil and Water Conservation district offices. So what we're doing here is helping the state office to make sure they've got enough plan reviewers and also operating funds for those district offices as well. Banking and Finance, Section 14, no changes. Section 15, Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities. I may have to take a break in the middle of this one because it takes a little bit to get through. But we've all heard from our providers around the state. We've heard from our families around the state of a lot of the needs that are still yet unmet. And Chair Lady Dempsey and her subcommittee have gone a long ways toward meeting a lot of these needs. Many of the ads that you'll see throughout this agency deal with either the behavioral health bill that we have moving that is now out of the House to the Senate, and some additional pieces that tie into the law enforcement package that we've been working on as well. But at 15.2.8, now in comp waivers, you'll see an addition of an additional 225 slots, bringing that to 325 slots added there. 15.2.10, an additional 1% rate increase for the DSPs. We did find out yesterday morning that the 5% that we had approved last year was just approved by CMS yesterday. So they'll be getting that 5% immediately, and then they will get an additional 1% as soon as CMS signs off on that. 15.2.11, just directing the department to do a rate study using some of the ARP funds. Then at 15.2.12, a 5% increase for non-waiver family support. That'll be something that'll help statewide. At 15.2.13, you'll see a similar item several places throughout the DBHD budget as it relates to the state psychiatric hospital nurses and health aides. Again, an incredible turnover rate there that they're trying to deal with, and so what the subcommittee had brought to us and what we're bringing before you today would be a dramatic increase to help stem that tide of turnover within those facilities. Then at 15.2.14, we have also gotten word that the state of public health emergency, the national one, will be extended for another quarter. So that allows a capture of state fund savings, and what we're doing there is saying that those state funds are to be plowed back into health services, mental health services across the state. 15.3.5, you'll see the addition of 15 forensic peer mentors, a true up on that number. 15.3.6 is, again, the hospital nurses and health aides. At 15.4.1, you'll see a true up on one of the CSBs that is not in PeopleSoft and had gotten omitted. So we're going back and catching those. 15.4.10, cutting back on that item just a little bit because of the staggered implementation nature of setting those facilities up, those treatment programs up. They can't stand them all up at one time. It'll have to be staggered, so there is some savings there to be gained. Most of that is plowed back in just about in this next item at 15.4.12, the Georgia Housing Voucher Program. It'll add about 500 additional housing vouchers to what we have now. And then a program manager for that is your next line at 15.4.13. Moving on down, still dealing with assisted outpatient treatment. And these items go back into the DOJ settlement. These are things that we're still trying to do in good faith to get them to be able to come out from under that settlement. And it's also part of the behavioral health package that the Speaker has instituted in the House as well. So you'll see support for that. Co-responder expansion for 5 new sites at 15.4.16, again, part of the behavioral health package. A new 16-bed and 50 temporary observation chair BHCC at 15.4.17. New case workers at 18. 5% salary supplements for the 12 employees who work directly with mental health accountability courts at 19. At 20, assistance and increasing in staffing for those mental health accountability courts. At 15.4.12, you'll see an ad for the complete stand-up of the 988 hotline that goes live on July the 16th of this year. At 22, the nurses and health aides, again, that stand-up of increased rates for those. 15.4.23, working with our partner at Grady Health, standing up a new 18-bed adult psychiatric unit there. And then at 15.4.24, a provider rate study. And then at 15.4.25, again, ties back to that public health state of emergency extension. Moving on to 15.6.4, extra special people. An incredible group, and I know Chair Lady Dempsey and several of her folks have seen the work that they do, and they're looking to expand services, so you'll see an addition there. 1565, again, to the nurses and the health aides, and at 1566, a restoration of a cut that we had to make in 21 to the Matthews Reardon Center for Autism Services, located down in Savannah. They've been a great partner, just as has Marcus Autism Center here in Atlanta. On down at under Child and Adolescent Mental Health Services, 1584, you'll see an ad there for the Georgia APEX program. We're continuing to work to get the APEX program in every school building across the state, and this will take one more giant step to make that happen. 1596 and 97. I'm sure that many of you have heard from your SAGs and from the paralegals that work with the SAGs on the need for their rate increase to happen to help them along. So you'll see that here. You'll also see it in DFACS as well, but taking them from their $57.50 hourly rate right now up to $77.50, and then on the paralegals going from their $25 rate up to a $40 rate. Again, they're having a very hard time finding individuals willing to do that work, and when that happens, that just means that everything related to these programs and trying to get help to these individuals just gets clogged up in the system. And then at 1598, you'll see administrative infrastructure necessary to handle the opioid litigation settlement that is coming very shortly. Moving on, 1510.6. There initially had been $5 million in cash put in for facility capital maintenance and repairs. We funded $2 million of that in the amended, so $3 million is all that is needed here. And then again at 1510.7, those nurses at the state psychiatric hospitals. Department of Community Affairs, moving on over at 1610.6. In Department of Ag, the governor, and I should have mentioned it back there, the governor is instituting, and we've been talking to him all summer about the Georgia Grown Food Bank program. And so with that being stood up in the Department of Ag, it's not any longer necessary that be here at 1610.6, so we've taken that reduction. Under 1612.1, dealing with the Resource Conservation and Development Councils, or the RC&Ds, as many of us know them. This bumps them to an additional $10,000 per district. And then the Georgia Rural Water Association, while they're not necessarily a public entity, they provide a very valuable public service in that when natural disasters hit, they're the ones that respond to all of our small towns that when the electricity goes off, they bring in the portable generators, get them set up and going, so they can still have water for their citizens throughout the state. 1613.1, just an adjustment, true up there on the COLA. Section 17, Department of Community Health. Chairman Parrish did about as much changing and movement in this as Chair Lady Dempsey did in DBHDD. If you'll look at 1717 and 1718, you'll see where the two systems that now manage Medicaid, which will now be called the Medicaid Enterprise System Transformation, MEST, and then the Enterprise Analytics Solution for Everyone, or EASE. Those two systems are being set up, and we're just helping to provide what is needed there for them to be set up and going. 1719, again, a study for the reimbursement rates on mental health care providers. And then at 1710, begin preparation for a repository of tracking, analyzing the reports from the complaints about lack of parity on the behavioral health reimbursement rates. Moving on to 17.4, 5 and 6, dealing with our FQHCs. You'll see the reduction, but then the addition. This addition puts 2 new centers up that will deal primarily with behavioral health. One of those at the coastal FQHC will be in McIntosh and Glenn counties, and then South Central will deal with Irwin, Ben Hill, Coffee, Berrien, Atkinson, Cook, and Lowndes counties. Moving on to our AHEX at 1747, just bumping those programs a little bit and their partnership with Augusta University. 1748, expanding the RN reentry program. As we all know, we're continuing to have nurse shortages across the state, and this just helps some of those that had stepped out of that profession to come back into that profession in this time of need. Under HFRD, Healthcare Facility Regulation Division at 1754, you'll see a reduction there. They've not been able to fully fill all of those staffs, and we feel comfortable that this will allow them to be able to do what they need to do there. Then under Medicaid, age, blind, and disabled, 1771, a formula true-up there. 1772, just the reflection of the extension of the public health emergency, allowed us to take some savings there. 1776, a slight change on the RS means index for the nursing homes. And then at 1710, an increase for the LTAC hospitals and inpatient rehab facilities across the state. We have not been able to increase that rate for them for some time, but we're able to here. 1711, just reflecting that we'll go to the 2020 cost report for our skilled nursing facilities. 17712, an increase of 5% for the reimbursement rate on mechanical ventilators. Those are not included in the cost report, so it has to be taken care of separately. 17713, increase for the home and community-based service providers. It's about 0.75% increase. It's going to help, though, with their fingerprinting requirements, and I think that fingerprinting, Chairman Parrish, is about $51.50 per employee that they're having to currently eat. 17714, you see in addition to add 4 codes on the Medicare levels for medical nutrition therapy. And then at 17715, and you'll see it again at 815 and 95, is the increase of 10% for 2 dental extraction codes and a 7% increase for 17 select dental restorative codes. As we all know, and our dentists have all told us, and Dr. Hawkins sitting here on the front level, your teeth health is indicated of your rest of your body health, and so it's important that we do this. At 1781, under low-income Medicaid, again, the public health emergency extension there, and at 1782. At 1786, not a change, but just a recognition of an addition the governor had put into his original budget that helps all providers. As you know, when a new doctor goes into town and sets up, they have to go through what's called attestation. Well, during that period, which may be 3 to 6 months, they're not getting reimbursed at all for the services that they provide. And what this will do is allow them to start being reimbursed from day one. So on down at 17813, you'll see the 1115 waiver language to expand Medicaid benefits to individuals with HIV. Medical nutrition therapy at 814, adding 4 codes to the Medicare level, and it opens up a 5th code to allow group nutrition counseling and the Children's Interventional Services Program. 17815 is the dental codes. 17816, again, dealing with the 1115 waiver, just saying that maternal health is an issue that we all feel passionate about, and this just makes sure that those that are here legally are allowed to receive those services. 17817, increase in the OBGYN codes to the 2020 Medicare reimbursement levels. And then 17818, triggering or starting to kick off the value-based purchasing for those providers as well, which means that they will get an increase for quality enhancements. 1792, just an adjustment there reflecting the public health emergency extension. Again, for medical nutrition therapy at 1794, 1795 dental, and then 1796, again, value-based purchasing. Then on down into the Georgia Board for Healthcare Workforce Board Administration, 17114, funds to implement the behavioral health care workforce database, which is part of the behavioral health package. 1712-2, increasing the new residency slots from 136 up to 199. And then at 1712-3, you'll see that item moved over to public health here shortly. New residency program at 1712-4. You'll also see an expansion of fellowship positions at Augusta University at 12.5. An evaluation of the statewide dental workforce, again, kind of going back to those dental care deserts that we see across the state at 12.6. 12.7, helping to continue to stand up the new residency program at Southern Region Medical Center, and the same at the Southeast Georgia Health Systems. You'll see those two ads there. And at 12.9, providing capitation funds for 7 residency slots at Emory University, who also partners with us in healthcare education across this state. Under 1713-2, again, the expansion of the accelerated track program there with Mercer. Moving on to the Morehouse School of Medicine, the new nursing program that they're getting set up there, you'll see an addition of $2 million to help them stand up and get rolling their 15-month nursing degree program. They'll have 60 students per year for the first 3 years going into that program. 17.4.2, you'll see there 4 child and adolescent psychology fellowship program ads and capitation funding for 8 residency slots as well. Under physicians for rural areas at 17.15.1, you'll see there loan repayment program for physicians, physician assistants, and advanced practice registered nurses. This would fund an additional 7 physicians, 1 PA, and 20 APRNs. 1716-1, another one of our partners on medical education, of course, has been PCOM, and they expanded to Moultrie a few years ago. That program is growing, and so what we're trying to do there is help in some of that growth. Under drugs and narcotics at 1784, the data management system for them to track licenses, complaints, and inspections, you'll see the ad there, and then 2 additional agents at 18.5. Community supervision, no changes. Department of Corrections, you'll see it 1927 and a couple of other places throughout the document. In the amended budget, we'd kicked off an additional, it was a Senate ad to kick off an additional $2,000 per year for those correctional officers. Corrections and in DJJ, anywhere from a 40 to a 90% turnover rate in those positions. So they will get the $5,000 COLA plus this additional $2,000 targeted pay raise. And you'll see that at 1927, 37, at 46, and also at 19.8.10. Backing up just a little bit, 19.7.1, and realizing that when we raise these rates, we also have to help raise the rates for the COs in the private prisons who are our partners with 4 facilities in the state. This addition here will go specifically to those correctional officers. These will be raises going directly to them. Just to give you an idea that many of these facilities many times are the largest employers in their communities. And in some cases, they are co-located or directly across the street from one of our own facilities. So when we bump our COs, they leave there to go to the state facilities. We still have prisoners that we're trying to take care of in these private prisons through that partnership. But these facilities are located in Folkston, Alamo, Nichols, and Millen. So in those small communities, the payroll from these institutions is a big deal. 1989, just a revision on the transportation hub plan there. 1996, you'll see also the CO increase as well. Department of Defense, Section 20, there are no changes. Under driver services, 2126, you'll see a reduction in the cut there to allow for the finishing of the construction of the testing pad and carousel in southeast Georgia. And then a reduction at 2128 for some one-time funds that were put in for the Georgia ID project last year. Decal, you'll see there in Decal, just the statewide changes in it. Department of Economic Development, Section 23. Move down to 2395. You'll see an addition for $2.8 million for the National Infantry Museum. We have partnered with them over the last several years to rightfully honor those who have served our country and to make sure that that museum does that in a way that is fitting for those individuals to honor them. 2396, an addition, we're bidding for the FIFA World Cup here in Atlanta, and part of the hat tip we need to make to FIFA as a state is that we support the security that will be needed, and so you'll see that addition there. 2397, again, another partnership that we have with the MLK Jr. Historic Site and the facility, the Center for Nonviolent Social Change, for some one-time requests that they have there to help upgrade the facility. Department of Education, you'll see, again, a few of the statewide changes as it relates to the $5,000 COLA. And then in Ag Ed, you'll see that at 2411, also at 2416, where it comes to the area teachers, young farmer programs, and for the extended day, extended year piece as well. Moving on to increased funding for 21 new Ag Ed programs across the state at 2418. Moving some of their certified personnel that are supervisory, but the way it was set up years ago, they're not on the state teacher salary scale, and it puts them kind of upside down, so we're trying to remedy that. 24-110, adding an urban suburban ag specialist to their staff. 111, dealing with the young farmer program, and then at 112, as the Georgia FFA Association and Ag Ed continues to grow, there also comes a need for additional support staff. 2437, the American Association of Adaptive Sports. They've been a long-time partner with us as well, so they're looking to expand services, so we're trying to help them with that. 2438, just eliminating some one-time pilot grant funds. Under charter schools at 2447, the true-up on as it relates to House Bill 403 for the charter schools, you'll see an addition of a little over $3 million there. Under GNETs at 2486, you'll see an adjustment and a true-up on that reduction based on actuals. At 2411.5, Chairman Jones and his subcommittee and staff especially have been working over the past year to kind of get a standardized formula for funding the residential treatment centers. This was something that we kind of tackled. It was early on when I came here, so we've been dealing with this issue for 15, 16 years. And so my hat is off to Chairman Jones and to Sarah and all of our staff and HBRO that have been working on that, Christine, to get us to something that offers stability for those, because they see an influx of kids coming and going, and it just depends on when the QBE count date is as to whether they may be at 5 people on the QBE count date. The next day there may be 25 people that they're having to serve, and they never get paid for that. Moving on to 2418 under non-QBE, expanding the feminine hygiene program that we started a couple of years ago to include 5th grade. And then at 2411.9, just the reduction because we did see one RTF close. Under nutrition, you'll see a true up there for the 5.4% salary increase for those individuals. You'll see also formula true ups at 13.2 and 13.3, 14.1, and then at 14.2, a true up there on the bus drivers. At 24.15.1, QBE equalization, again a formula true up on that. And at 24.16.1, local 5 mil share true up. 24.17.1, again the true up. And at 17.2, the true up. A lot of what you see throughout this is truly the true ups. I do want to bring your attention to 24.17.9. The school nurses have been contained within the QBE funding program here, but not really part of the QBE funding formula. And so there's been a lot of back and forth on that over the years. And what we've done is we're pulling out the school nurses and starting a new program for them, and you'll see those here in just a few minutes. Again, you'll see some restoration of reductions that we had to take in 21 to our RESAs at 2418. Then moving down to 2420 is where we're putting the school nurse program out on its own for transparency, and so it is, recognized when adjustments are made. And you'll see at 2420.3 the 5.4% salary increase for those nurses as well. Under technology and career education, again dealing with extended day, extended year teachers, a truing up of that at 2423.7. Moving on to ERS. And under PSERS at 25.3.2, you'll see that we have increased the rate by a quarter to take it up to $16 per year of service for those that are under the PSERS system. It is capped at $16.50, so we're getting close to that cap. And then at 25.4.2, just language recognizing the spread that is throughout the document as it relates to the employee retirement system to finally trigger a COLA for those individuals as well. Forestry Commission, 26.1.6. This will be one position for strategic initiatives. Again, employee retention is an issue for forestry, and just trying to, Tim Larimore, our new director over there, is trying very hard to hold on to those people because it costs a great deal to train those folks and equip them and get them ready to go out and respond. And so you'll see additions related to that at 26.16.17, 26.26, and at 26.37. At 26.36, you'll see the replacement of the funds that they had shifted over to in federal funds in 21 when we had gotten into the crunch because of the pandemic. Under the Governor's Office, Section 27, at 27.37 under OPB, just pulling out the Office of Health Strategy and Coordination and putting it in its own program. And then in that program, we're pointing out the all-payer claims database to complete that program, adding an analyst to coordinate the collection and reporting of nursing and hospital data, and then language again at 27.4.5 as it relates to the Georgia Data Analytics Center as it relates to all of that information related to hospitals. Under GEMA at 27.6.5, this will be the last piece for their career retention plan that they had started a couple years ago, but it adds the $5,000 COLA for those individuals. Under the Governor's Office of Student Achievement, you'll see what looks like two reductions at 27.8.7 and 8.8, just moving them into, again, their standalone programs for transparency as it relates to the Governor's Honors Program and the Governor's School Leadership Academy. No reduction, just merely breaking them out into their own programs for clarity and transparency. Office of Child Advocate, 27.11.4, you'll see the addition of 2 investigator positions as it relates to that office. Department of Human Services and after-school care, you'll see a slight reduction there, but there are tremendous federal funds that are available to do that program, so we're just recognizing that is an available reduction there that we can use in some other places. 28.3.6, many of you have come to me about services for at-risk girls and a program that has started in Macon called the PACE Center for Girls. It's kind of a pilot program. They need some help getting out. What I have seen from them so far has been incredibly impressive in what they've been able to do. So we're saying that we agree with it and want to help you. Under Child Support Services at 28.4.6 and 4.7, again, I'd mentioned the SAGs and the paralegals earlier, and I told you that those would show up in DFACs and in Human Services. And so you'll see that at 28.4.6, 4.7, 25.10 and 11, 28.5.10 and 11. And also a increase for the CASAs at 2859. That will actually expand their capacity, so they will be present in every county in the state. Those of you that currently have them know the incredible work that they do, so I'm excited we will have those now in all 159 counties. 2877, you'll see a reduction there, but it will show back up just in a minute in the elder services as it relates to Georgia MemoryNet. The SAGs and paralegals again at 2886 and 87. Then under elder community living services at 2895, adding the new dementia care specialist that will work with the AAAs across the state. And then 2896, the MemoryNet comes back in there, but with also the addition of $3 million to allow them to expand their services for another hub and telemedicine services statewide. And then at 2897, increasing funds or providing funds for the non-Medicaid home and community-based services, or HCBSs. That'll be about 1,796 people that will be able to be helped and pulled off of that waiting list. Under out-of-home care at 2812.4, we've done some incredible stuff over the last few years. It relates to foster care. One of the things that we're trying to catch up here with is the clothing allowance for these foster care children. And so we'll be increasing it by $275 per child. And so that bumps that on up considerably for those families. It is on a reimbursement model, so it's not that a check is just being written and sent to them. It is based on what their actual costs are. 2818.1 under Family Connection restores the FY21 cut, and then also adds $2,250 to each county collaboration for a mental health component that they're ready to stand up as well. Moving on to Georgia Voc Rehab at 2823.7. They have about $9.5 million in existing bond balances that they haven't spent, so we're just saying recognize those instead of putting cash in there. Restoration of funds for independent living services at 23.8. That comes with a 4-to-1 match. And then Georgia Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing supports their sustainability there. And then at 2823.10, this will allow them to open back up some of those categories they've had to close down, tier 2 and 3 services that they'll be able to open back up. And then Georgia Radio Reading Service at 2311, just a restoration of the FY21 cut. Office of Insurance Commissioner, move over to 2947. Recognizing the fees and funds that he brings in the positions that he needs to have within that agency, and what we're doing is saying, yes, you can retain those revenues, basically make it run through the budget. There was a little bit of savings that we could take from that, and you'll see that at that $383,000 reduction. Then you'll see an add of 127 at 29.4.8 for an investigator that he's going to need for part of the behavioral health package on the parity issue with dealing with insurance companies. GBI, 30.1.6, we're adding about 67 additional positions to GBI on top of the ones we've added over the last couple of years. Their human resources division is getting quite strained, and they've asked us if they can have a little help there, and that's what we're doing. Capital maintenance and repairs at 30.1.7 for their headquarters. If you've been over there, you realize it's kind of in many ways, kind of a sitting duck. It's not surrounded by a fence, and it needs to be a little more secure than what it is currently. At 30.3.6, you'll see the addition of 25 new crime lab positions there. At 30.3.7, you'll see the addition of several positions there as it relates to the medical examiner's office. There'll be 3 new medical examiners, 1 administrative assistant, 11 desk investigator specialists, and 1 DIS supervisor there in that department. At 30.3.6, again, the adjustment for parity, but also for retention as it relates to those death investigating specialists. 30.3.9, just an allocation to allow them to be able to outsource more of their chemistry and firearm cases because they have quite a backlog there, and we're trying to help them work through that backlog. Under Regional Investigative Services, just going to 4 full-time positions for elections complaints. And then at 30.4.8, you'll see the addition of, actually it'll be 22 new positions there for special agents in criminal investigations. 30.5.7, also bringing forward that something we put in the amended 22 was the local first responder grants. Then moving down under CJCC at 30.6. At 30.6.6, you'll see 5 new mental health accountability court and court managers, part of the law enforcement package and behavioral health package. That 5% increase at 6.7 and the adjustment at 6.8, again, are part of those packages. 6.9 is part of the law enforcement package. And then at 6.10, dealing with the felony drug court and veterans treatment court and family treatment courts, that was a administrative office of the court's request and part of that law enforcement package as well. And then increased funding for the court participation census. They're seeing more people, so it costs more to put them through there. Remember, those accountability courts are incredibly effective in helping give people a second chance. They've been incredibly effective in reducing our population in our state prisons, but they're also incredibly effective at reducing the recidivism rate as well. So it's just a good investment all the way around. Under DJJ at 31.2.8, again, the additional $2,000 for those corrections officers. You'll see that as well at 31.310, and that again is on top of the $5,000 COLA that everyone else is receiving. 31.3.9, you'll just see the elimination of the cash funding there. We did that in the 22 amended budget. The same at 31.411, that was done in the 22 amended budget. And at 31.412 is again the 2,000 increase. Under the Department of Labor, you'll see us throughout those programs. The recognition of it will take them until probably October 1st to renegotiate their federal contracts to allow for the 5,000 COLA for those employees. Department of Law, 33.18, you'll see the governor recommended 3 positions on human trafficking. And in talking with him and part of the law enforcement package that we're working on right now, it also would add 3 additional positions to that 3 that he had already put in there. Under DNR Section 34, you'll see a transfer of funds at 34.26 over to the Parks and Recs division. You'll see it pick back up here in just a minute. And then a recognition at 34.27 to go to the new rate on the SAGs, should they use any as it relates to prosecuting of voting under the influence there. 34.36 under environmental protection. Again, there are a couple places that we need to get them to October 1st because of the federal contracts, and that's where you see that as it relates to the COLA. 34.37, some more targeted raises directly related to environmental compliance specialists and their engineers. They're seeing a very high turnover rate and attrition there, and those are some important folks for all the growth that we have going on in the state. Under law enforcement at 34.65, you'll see 22 game warden positions that we had to eliminate in the FY21 budget. 34.66, just recognize the increase in fuel costs, putting $750,000 there. We'll probably have to come back in the amended and make an adjustment there, or y'all will have to come back in the amended and make an adjustment there. Whew, one less thing to worry about.
Qualifying's not over yet.
It is for me. All right, under Parks and Recs, you'll see a couple of small additions there, and you'll also see the transfer from that earlier item at 34.77 as it relates to the improvements to those facilities. At 34.76, increasing funds for the Council on American Indian Concerns for their per diem and for the statutory mission that they have on education. 34.78, helping out the Sound Short Line. That is our rolling state park. It is a mobile state park. And during the shutdown, they took an incredible hit on revenues. So what we're trying to do there is make sure that they can recover from that, but also maintain a very safe operating plant as they run people up and down the rails. Pardons and paroles, no changes. State Property Commission under 3621, you'll see the elimination of the $45 million there. We did that in the amended budget, so it's not necessary here in the big budget. Public Defender Council, Section 37, 3726, 2728, all relate to the annualization of the new judgeships in those three districts, and then the addition of the 3 new judgeships at 2, 9, 10, and 11. And then the increase at 212 for 4 juvenile assistant public defenders, that's part of our law enforcement package, and also is moving to put the ADA or the assistant public defenders on parity with the assistant DAs as well. And you'll see again those adjustments as it relates to parity at 213 and 214. And then at 37-215, part of the law enforcement package there to establish 3 new conflict offices around the state. Under public health, you'll see at 38.15, that move from DCH I mentioned earlier. And then at 38.16, an expansion of the Sickle Cell Foundation program for testing. They're trying to expand their testing for services for something that is an incredibly painful disease from my understanding. At 38.37, you'll see this adjustment as well as it relates to the public health workers needing some help in retaining those individuals that are out in our communities. You know, public health has an office in all 159 counties. They have a public health nurse in all 159 counties. So we're trying to take and quench that additional turnover in addition to the COLA that we have in there. At 38.4.6, you'll see one-time funds under the Trauma Commission there to help with McIntosh County. Their ambulance provider pulled out, leaving them without an ambulance provider, so we're trying to help them get that reestablished. 38.54, again, dealing with the public health nurses and increasing their salary. Jumping on over then to 38.96, again, the salary issue. And at 38.10.4, Chair Lady Dempsey has House Bill 1355 dealing with childhood lead testing. And this puts us in compliant with a new federal program as well, so you'll see the addition there for that testing. 38.10.5 is the retention issue, and then 38.11.5, you see that's a fairly large number there, but that's where you get into those nurses in all 159 counties. And then some additional improvements in infrastructure and support at 38.11.6 under the county grants. That concludes public health. Moving on to public safety. Under Capitol Police Services, I've had a couple of you mention to me that our Capitol Police folks realized they were not getting the raise in the initial proposal. This is taking care of these individuals that are here every day, making sure that we're protected and the citizens that come in and out these doors are protected. Moving on over to field offices and services, you'll see at 39.4.6, we're just recognizing, knowing that there's going to be some attrition in that new cadet class and just taking the savings now. And then annualizing a 10% salary supplement for the Troop C officers that combat the crime here within 285. At 39.4.8, you'll see 10 additional SWAT unit troopers and 10 additional Nighthawk DUI troopers. And the chairman mentioned to me the other day, and I did not know this, but 105 counties in our state do not have a SWAT team or any SWAT equipment. So the Georgia State Patrol, with their SWAT unit, provide the SWAT services in those counties. So we're trying to make sure that they have the resources they need there. At 39.49, again, recognize the increase in fuel costs. And at 39.57, just saying under MCC that you'll recognize existing funds for that 10% Troop C supplement. Moving on down to Office of Public Safety Officer Support, you'll see an addition there for 2 peer counselors and 1 social worker, and operating expenses there at 39.6.7, and under the Firefighter Standards and Training Council at 39.7 and 39.76 and 7.7. You'll see the expansion of their online testing database and the IT support contract that backs that up as well. 39.98, we funded those repairs in the amended budget, so they were not necessary to be included in the 23. Under the Public Service Commission, 40.1.7, some additional funds for the maintenance of their e-filing system. And then at 40.3.4, 8 positions that we'd intended to include in the FY21 budget for many of the rate cases and other things that are coming up. You'll see the addition there. Under the Board of Regents, Chairman Knight and his folks worked hard and long here. And so if you'll, the first change you'll see, it's 41.4.4. The Enterprise Innovation Institute, the ATDC that many of us have worked with at Georgia Tech, they have the ability to match considerably any state funds that go into that program, so we're recognizing that. 41.8.4, the Rural Coding Partnership Program that we put in last year, never got off the ground, so we're recognizing savings there. Under GTRI at 41.10.6, you'll see the addition for the STEM program that they're going to be rolling out in rural Georgia. Then over at the Medical College of Georgia Hospitals and Clinics, they're continuing on to expand their 3+ program. It's based in Savannah. And so we put some one-time funds in to match a foundation grant that they got last year. But in order to continue to expand this program, you'll see that cut was eliminated with an addition of $4.8 million, so it leaves them $10 million there as they expand that program going forward. 41.14.7, try and take care of our libraries as best we can, and increasing by 10 cents their materials grant, so taking it from 40 cents to 50 cents per capita. You'll have a bunch of library ladies hugging your neck for that, because it truly is amazing what they're able to do with those funds. Going on then to the SFI, the Special Funding Initiatives, you'll see at 41.15.4 where we've pulled from the teaching program this 5-year expansion of nursing students across the university system. We've pulled it out of teaching. I'll explain some more about that here in just a minute. And then at 41.15.7, Chairman Knight and several of his committee have been working, trying to address the needs of aviation workforce in the state. And so what they've done here, and you'll see it also in the technical college system, is start to stand up the expansion of that teaching. You'll also see in the bond package there's recognition of some additional aircraft and facilities to be located around the state to help get those students into that pipeline, into those very good paying jobs. My hat's off to him for the work he's done on that. He's thought I've ignored him a few times, I think, about it, but I hadn't. I've been listening. Under the teaching program at 41.18.1, you'll see a true up there of the teaching formula, and a TRS adjustment at 18.3 again as a true up. Now, when you look at 41.18.8, and I know we've had several folks with Valdosta mention that they really wanted these programs, puts us in a little bit of a quandary. These are actually A-unit function programs. And so these are programs that go through the Board of Regents, that go through the teaching program, included in the teaching program, but we have never added these type courses within the budget this way. It kind of, I think, and this is just my personal opinion, and doing something like this would kind of get us on the edge of the constitutionality as it relates to how the separation is between the University System of Georgia, or Board of Regents, and the General Assembly. So we're saying yes, recognize it, do it, but do it the way that we're supposed to be doing it otherwise. If you'll look at 41.18.9, it's not a change there, but I do want to mention there that with the funding coming back into their funding formula, this will allow for the elimination of all those special institutional fees that have been in place since 08, I believe it was. So those will be going away, so that's less money that comes out of the student's pocket, which we all know is the parent's pocket, and so it will help them as well. 411810, as it relates to those scholarships, again, one of those items that this is not the correct place to do that. 411813 and 14, again, those are A-unit issues. At 411815, I don't know why I keep saying 48. I think I want to be done. 411815, you'll see that move back over in the SFI at 4115.4. And then an addition of 2 multilingual folks to work with the Small Business Development Centers at UGA at 4118.17. Under Vet Med Experiment Station, you'll see what you see at 4119.3. Part of that, or the biggest part of that, is actually restoration of some austerity that was taken when we were doing the 10% statewide cuts a couple of years ago. Just puts them back to whole. Under GMC at 4123.1, true up there on that number, true up at 23.2 and 23.3 as well. And that finishes us up in Regents and revenue. There are no changes. Secretary of State, one thing there at 43.1.1, just recognizing some of those other funds that they use for positions. And so that you see it's not state funds, but it's total funds or other funds there. Then at 43.5.8, just language item, telling them to coordinate with the Governor's Office of Health Strategy and Coordination on the Board of Nursing data that they collect there. Under student finance, under commission administration, we've added several new programs to them in this budget, and we've added a couple of programs over the last several budgets. So they're needing some additional help in operating expenses to administer those programs, so you'll see that $1.6 million add for that. Under dual enrollment, that is a true up. Under engineering scholarship at 44.3.1, again, a true up for actuals of what we've been running lately in that program. Under Hope GED, you'll see a reduction there, but the reduction is because of the way that the change will be made in paying for those GED expenses. We'll do upfront payment of the exam expenses instead of an after the fact, and that allows us to capture a savings there. Under Hope Scholarships private schools, just doing a 6% increase on those. Then at Hope Public at 44.91, you'll see a formula true up there. Moving on to service counselable loans, as I mentioned, those addition of new programs. You'll see those here. The first one at 44.15.1 deals with GBI, and as a recruitment and retention initiative for the full-time medical examiners. This is something we've been working on with them for about 2 years, trying to help them hire and retain these individuals so we can open back up some of the forensic crime labs around the state. 44.15.2, a true up on the National Guard scholarship. And then at 44.15.3, part of the law enforcement package on the allowing them or helping them to pursue higher degrees in criminal justice and relevant social science fields. 44.15.4, relating to the service counselable loans, we'd added that in the amended budget, just recognizing it here so folks know that it will continue to go forward. And then under tuition equalization grants at 44.16.1, you'll see a bump there going from $850 a year to $900 a year for those students. Under TRS, no changes. TCSG, Technical College System of Georgia. If you haven't visited your local campus of your technical college, I strongly encourage you to. Those are some incredible places. I continue to be thoroughly impressed with what's going on at some of our technical college systems, facilities across the state. Under workforce development at 46.4.1, we're saying yes to do this. They've had trouble getting it stood up, so we're capturing that savings right now on that item. Then moving on over into their teaching program, technical education program, you'll see at 46.6.10 an adjustment in the funds to implement that dual achievement pilot program, a true up for what they're doing there. 46.6.11, As they've continued to grow and add many courses, a lot of these courses that they're adding are very high-cost programs. One I'll just throw out there is truck driving, of course. I mean, you're talking about a rig that's rig and a trailer that's probably going to run you $250,000 to $300,000, and to keep the fuel in it. So we're trying to recognize here with this $15 million addition those increased costs there. And then at 46,612, you'll see the other piece of the aviation expansion that Chairman Knight's worked so hard on over the last couple of years. Now we get to mine spaghetti when you get to transportation. And so Chairman Perkle was kind enough to give me his cheat sheet. So I'm going to do something a little bit different here because honestly, it's hard for me to keep up going line by line of what the move is from here to there. So I'm gonna cheat a little bit and plagiarize his. So program additions to the GDOT budget include an investment of $10 million to airport aid at 4712. We've restored $1 million, and that is at 4715. So we've increased the funding by $9 million overall. We've also added an additional $10 million to rail at 471212. In the balance of transportation budget, we ensured the dedicated fees were used for the purpose for which they are intended. Transportation trust funds, example, hotel, motel, EV, heavy vehicle, are used to fund the ATL, GRETA, and CERTA, debt service and transit, and to accommodate the source and use of those funds directive, we utilized fund swaps throughout the transportation budget. I can't even read it off the page of paper. That's how much mine spaghetti it is. Trust fund dollars were replaced with state general funds at 4713, 106, and 128 and put into debt service. Similarly, trust fund dollars were replaced with motor fuels at 4732. The bulk of this swap was found at the increase of $14 million in capital construction at 4721, and the balance in the recruitment and retention initiatives at 4742, 52, 92, 112, 132, 142. Trust fund dollars were replaced with the state general funds at the adjustment to recruitment and retention in ports and waterways at 4710.8 and in rail at 4712.11, while the adjustment to retention in transit at 4715.10 utilizes both trust funds. While we are looking at the transit program, we did another fund swap, but for a different reason. House Bill 511 provided a cap of 10% of transportation trust funds that may be used for transit. The number was $1.2 million over the cap as reflected in the true-up at 4715 and 15.7 and 15.8. You'll see true-ups at 47.63 and 6.4 to accurately reflect the base budget for the newly established programs as shown in rail at 47.12.5 and transit at 47.15.5. 47.16.1 and 16.3.1 are true-ups to reflect positions left out of the $5,000 COLA. We're going to have tests on that here in just a minute, so if doorkeeper will lock the doors and keep them closed, we'll see how well y'all paid attention to that, but I'm just thankful I had the cheat sheet. Moving on over then, that wraps up transportation. Moving on to vet services at 48, section 48. The cemetery at 4824, there's $1 million that remains in the base there. We're just pointing out that those dollars are still there. Adding a technician for the cemetery at Glenville, and then a name change at 4826 from Veteran Cemetery to Veteran Cemeteries. And then one last thing at 48.4.6, increasing funds for a director of suicide prevention and outreach, specializing in veterans' mental health issues. We know that that's an incredibly huge issue, not just here in Georgia, but across this country. And again, these ladies and gentlemen are folks that have defended our freedom and allow us to be here. And so we just need to make sure that they receive the backup and support services they need when they get home. Section 49, workers' comp, no changes. And then most of you have already beat me to section 50 looking at bonds, so that does not require any explanation there. So, Mr. Chairman, with that, I'll be glad to take some questions. I have no idea what time it is. I just don't want to make Chairman Smith, the birthday boy from yesterday, upset with us running over into his time.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It looks like you made it today in 1 hour and 6 minutes and about a
Quarter.
A quarter?
Hold on a second.
well, I think we've still got 30 minutes left, so if you want to pass out those quizzes, everybody get your number 2 pencil. We do have one question.
All right, let me make one point real quick. We'll have a copy. I told you about the mind spaghetti, and we've been teasing Abby Day about that. That was kind of her term that she came up with the other day, because it truly is incredibly complicated to understand how the funding formula for transportation is put together. Of course, Abby was here when we passed House Bill 170 in 2015, so she was boots on the ground on that. She's educated Clay. She's trying to educate me. But on your desk tomorrow, well, they'll probably be out there this afternoon, you'll have this kind of mind bubble that'll show you how all of those funds flow. And I'd asked her the other day to kind of come up with something. I didn't think she'd be able to make it this simple, and I'm thankful she did, because I'm a simple mind, but it'll be on your desks tomorrow to look at.
Thank you very much. Chair Lady Taylor.
Turn on floor mics. Used to be a separate button for that.
I don't see a second button. We'll try it again.
It's on.
There we go.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a great budget. Thank you. And this may not be your headache, because it really applies to the budget we already passed. I'm very grateful we're looking at changing the tax on gas tax because of the problems right now. What's that going to do to the budget?
It will not affect this budget,
Not
because
this one.
if you recall, in the amended budget, we had a recognition of about 1.6, 1.7 billion for the tax refund. And so with that, the bill that we've actually passed will come in dramatically under that. So you've got the headroom there that will basically be used to take care of this. It'll come out of the unrestricted reserves that we have sitting right now.
I figured you had an answer for it, but I'd had somebody ask me that. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Representative Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, in Student Finance Commission, Section 44, specifically 44.7.2, it says increase funds to provide a minimum factor rate of 90% for the HOPE grant for technical colleges, but it's not highlighted. So I was wondering, does that mean that it's not actually going to cost us any more money to do that?
Say the line number again, I'm sorry.
44.7.2.
Well, it's not a change from the governor's budget. That's what they'd already included. And so it puts it to a minimum factor of 90%. So it does take $4.6 million to get it there.
Okay. I was just thinking if it didn't cost us any more money, I was going to suggest we just go the other 10%. Thank you.
I understand.
Seeing no other questions at this time, I'll recognize Chairman Perkle for a motion.
Move to pass.
We have a motion and a second that House Bill 911 do pass by committee substitute. Before I call this for a vote, you know, one of the, I guess the moments where you have a live microphone and a captive audience means you get to speak. And I wouldn't be able to walk out of this room if I didn't say a few words this morning, so I hope you'll indulge me. Since January 10th, 2005, Chairman England has served 10.8 million Georgians and has served this House, and for countless years has served as chair of Appropriations. And if you really sit and you watch how he knows numbers, how he can speak numbers, how he can explain numbers, if you get the chance and you take the chance and you make the chance to watch, you'll be educated. But I don't know that I've served with anyone in my 6 years who has taught me more about integrity, about openness, about honesty, about doing what's right for the people of Georgia. And as he said, has endured being asked for $250 million a day until this budget is passed. And I'm sorry that he won't be here anymore in these meetings to teach me and to mentor me and to show me things that I need to do to be a better representative. So, Chairman England, I salute you. I say thank you.
You got my goat.
Seeing no further discussion, there is a motion and a second. All those in favor of the passage of this bill, please say yes. Yes. Any opposed, no. Motion carries.
Don't adjourn yet. 'Cause you gonna say something, I'm gonna say something. Thank you, y'all are much too kind. A lot of work goes into what we do here. You spend a lot of time away from family, away from home, away from your businesses, and you don't get told thank you enough either. And I just want to make sure that you know from the bottom of my heart what an honor it's been to lead this committee for the last 12 years. And this is the 25th budget that I've had the pleasure to present to you. And a little kid from County Line Elementary School never would have imagined that I would have this opportunity to be here and go and see and do some of the things that I've done. But as I've said before, I stand amazed at our state employees and what our employees across the state do day in and day out, every day of the year. I can't imagine, as you know, the amount of time we spend away from families. I know that many of them see their families probably even less than we do because of their dedication to this state, to the 10.8 million people that live here, and trying to carry out what it is that we ask them to do as a body, as a General Assembly. But thank you for the kind comments. Thank you for the standing O. Lord's with us, and we're going to move on to something we don't really know what yet. It might be turning wrenches on old tractors. At least that's part of the plan. And playing with some grandbabies. So thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We stand adjourned.